Welcome, everyone, to the Human Intelligence Movement Virtual Summit. It is so great to see so many familiar faces, and we are thrilled to come together to really talk about how we can support students to succeed and thrive in an AI world powered with all of their human potential. I'm Michelle Ament, and I am your host today, and I am so excited to get this party started. We are going to hear from two keynoters, Travis Allen and Dr. Sabba Quidwai, and we have an amazing interactive think tank panel. We are bringing together some of the most thought-provoking leaders in the space, ready with students, educators, and innovators, ready to really think about how, as a movement, we can transform the future of education. Well, the mission of the human intelligence movement is really to ensure that all students have the human skills they need to thrive and succeed in an AI world. And when we look at this list of what makes us uniquely human, this is really what we're talking about when we think about what are those human skills, passionate about advocating for human potential in an AI world, and really thinking about what our school system needs to do to be transformed to support students in an AI era.
We were able to build up our students and prepare them for that industrial age workforce. And I would argue that the thing you needed to survive in the present workforce. And so, in this knowledge era, right, that was the goal. If you just get a 4 year college degree, we're guaranteed success in the workforce. Because just like we created machines to do the physical labor for us, we've now created machines to do the knowledge for us. And I believe at our core, this is why it's such a painful time to be in education or to be in the workforce right now. It's also an exciting time because we've created these machines that, just like the industrial age, are doing that for us. Specifically, the internet and artificial intelligence as kind of the catalyst for what we're experiencing. And when we think about this, this is something that a lot of jobs and a lot of groups are contemplating and questioning right now. And really, it comes down to, well, what is a teacher doing, right? There are some teachers that might be replaced by AI if all we're doing is knowledge dissemination, right? The era of knowledge teaching, I would say, is being replaced. Well, I might not have all the answers. In fact, I might have none of the answers. But I think what's so crucial is what are the questions that we're going to go ask? How can we inspire each other? How can we inspire our students to want to ask the questions that need to be asked? I think that is what makes me uniquely human. That is why AI will not replace me as long as I continue to have that be my focus. The World Economic Forum just posted the top 10 skills on the rise right now. And it shows that 75% of employers are prioritizing hiring for human skills right now. Things like creative thinking, analytical thinking, right? Having kids think for themselves, be creative, be adaptable, have their resilience, all these things, being curious about the world around them are so key to their success as they go forward. Are we building educational institutions that are fostering these skills every single day that our students walk into that classroom? And I'd love to have a debate in this room with you all today as we think about this. So going back through this timeline, if we went from physical labor being our form of currency to now knowledge, to now the future, I would argue, is human skills. What makes us? And so as we think about this, everything at our foundation we know about schools and the way we learn to some degree has to change because we are no longer living in the knowledge era, fewer social skills. So again, I'm sensing a trend here, right? That overall there are elements where kids are getting better, but we are seeing a decline. And what's interesting is we're now saying that this skill is more important than ever, but we're also seeing it on the decline as a society. I think that is a major red flag, one that we need to sound the alarm on and be discussing. I'm going to make the case today that I also think human skills are declining. Right here is the average IQ of Americans. It's called the Flynn effect. We are constantly getting smarter as a species. That's great news. For 40 years, we're getting smarter. But when you compare that to the creative quotient test, you can see that we were on the incline, then something happened in the 90s and we started going on the decline. Well, what happened in the 90s? The internet. The internet was invented to solve our problems for us, and it did a phenomenal job at the expense of our kids thinking critically, solving problems, and being independent and having those social skills, right? So, this was a big part of what we felt. And at the core of it, it has created challenges that both the students themselves and the schools face in their journey to be ready for this new digital era workforce. What I want to share with you today is some of my biggest observations. We can't fix the problem if we don't first identify what those problems are and where they come from. That, at its core, I think, is what's so fundamental that we help and build with our students as they think about this. So we've got to build our self efficacy with our students if we're going to overcome this. We have seen the ramifications, both good and bad, that technology without digital citizenship has on the mental load of our students. And a lot of us assume that students know how to use technology, and I would argue, well, they know how to use it for video games and social media, but not always as a productive device. So I think that we've got to teach our kids both the ability to find ways to solve their problems effectively, and also encourage them to use it in constructive ways instead of being used by the internet. Let's talk about the first problem that I see in our educational institutions. The first is the curriculum design. The questions we ask have not changed all that much in a very long time, that focus on building human skills, not necessarily knowledge retention. When I think about the workforce, I think that when the industrial age happened, we built an education system that mirrored the workforce. I think we need to do the same thing again. We need to look to the workforce and say, what kind of humans do you need in the workforce? It is transforming some sort of outcome and desire and creating something of value. And when we think about this in education, I think at our core, this is one of the biggest problems we have right now is how, as administrators, how do we manage our teachers? Our teachers, our administrators, the smartest person in the room and dictating step-by-step process. Here are the 100 ways you teach your class today. We see this play out in those situations. And I think it's something that we have to start mirroring what the workforce looks like to see change in education with the problems ahead of us. We are faced with some of the biggest challenges we have ever faced in education as we have to transition to a new era in society. I want to tell you a little bit about my story of how I came into this space. I've been in education reform for over 15 years. Would transform education. If you could just give every student a device, all of our problems will be solved. Education will be for the better. That, at its core, is what we are here in this movement to talk about, think about, and obsess with every time we go into this educational world. We have to aspire for something else. We need to redefine the very purpose, the reason we go to school. What happened for me, I run ProSolve and we build, game-based, play-based human skill curriculum and your social emotional curriculum, things like that. And I was talking to a superintendent in California, and he came up to me. He's like, "You know what? We're going to put your product in all of our after-school and summer programs, and you know why we're going to do it? Because it's good for kids. It is what they actually need to grow as humans. That we have mediocrity in the products, the solutions, the thinking that comes to education for something different." And when I talk about the aim, I mean, what if? Can you imagine if education prioritized, funded, and paid for the development of human skills every single time your kids walk into your classroom? Demand something more, something different out of these educational institutions. And when we do that, we will start to see change in the system. To create true change, what if we rally behind the pursuit of human intelligence? What if we say, look, the end goal of our initiative is we want to build human skills in our school district every single day. You're going to use AI a ton along the way to generate and create that, but it's the pursuit of humans that is what matters most. That is a message that everyone can rally behind. And the great news about this is good teachers have been doing it for decades, way before the technology. So with that said, please continue to be a part of this movement. Bring your voice, bring your thoughts, help push and challenge all of us to become better as we build this community of best practices Thank you so much for your time. I'll turn it back over to you, Michelle.
I think one of the most important things that we are doing right now to elevate this need for human skills in our education system is our research team coming together to really define it isn't about us all thinking the same way. And so this community is really a group of people that are going to tackle the wicked problems in education, the ones that have been around for hundreds of years. And it is now such an opportunity to make change in the space. And so this group, this community of like-minded educators, it's really a platform for all of us, whether we are educators, administrators, or innovators. So I am excited to really introduce to you some of the people behind the movement that are really working to bring this forward. And first, I want to acknowledge our executive board of directors. You've met Travis, you've met myself. I want to introduce Jerry Alvarez, who is the superintendent of Santa Ana Schools in California. So this group of executive board members recently came together. We had our first board meeting, and it was a tremendous 2 hours of conversation that was all about how do we guide and support this human intelligence movement to really transform education in our AI world. And so I am thrilled to have board members with us today and excited to see where we work together to take this human intelligence movement. So I've had a chance to share with you about the executive team and the directors, but I also want to acknowledge we have 469 founding members. Many of you are here today who said, we want to come along on this journey with you and be part of this human intelligence movement. We also have 4 founding partners who are helping us shape what this movement looks like. The human intelligence movement is just 6 months old. We are in our infancy, and today again marks the launch of this official movement. And over the last 6 months, we have just been setting the stage for the amazing work that we are going to be doing. We've been doing a lot of awareness generation through podcasts and blog posts. It's really inspiring, at least to me, to think about what the foundation that we have built in order to go out now and create some transformational change in education and begin to really think about how we will elevate human skills in our day-to-day classrooms. And I just want to say again, none of this would be possible without all of you. We've brought a diverse group of speakers together today, students, educators, administrators, innovators, really bringing their ideas to really shape what we are doing in education. And we've got a great panel, like I said, of both students, educators, and innovators. So I am going to have us turn it, I'm going to turn our view to our speakers and ask them to introduce themselves. And in one word, tell us your most human quality. And so let's go ahead and switch the screen share to our speakers. Thank you for being here, John. Oh, all right. So we've met our think tank, and what a diverse group of people with different lived experiences, different perspectives that are all coming together. Now, we heard Travis talk about the importance of really building human skills for our future workforce.
I think, of course, I shouldn't say of course because we don't listen to each other now, but I think we should, of course, be looking out for that. And the whole idea of collaboration and all the 4 C's, 8 C's, 7 C's, depends on whose book you read, all the C's. But I think one of the things that we're going to do, we're going to realize.
Is that what today's education system looks like for you?
But I don't think that a lot of teachers are allowing kids to bring their ideas to the room. They have their set ideas that they learned when they were growing up and when they were learning, and that's what they're teaching. And I think that what we need to do when it comes to, if we want to evolve education as well, is we need to have teachers that allow you to anything in school. And I think if we can do that, we're not only going to be able to teach kids that this is how the workforce is going to become, but also allow kids to know that even if they're not the best at one way to do things, that they aren't
Well, Daniel, you're starting to really help us come up with solutions, like what ways to really change what the student experience is, how we start to transform what education looks like. Let's build on what Daniel's having to say. Callie, what would you offer in terms of if you had to get rid of something that's happening in education today, what would it be and what would you replace it with?
I think education today, I would get rid of the way students can show how they learn and how they understand things instead of being.
Well, your ideas are resonating with tons of people in the audience, Callie and Daniel, when you talk about choice and voice and self-directed learning. And Rochelle, you said you could really speak about the point around, I think, seat times and grades of what is what you'd get rid of. Is that what, or was it something taken away?
Oh yeah, it's gosh, there are so many things that I could say. I'm like thinking about what Jason and Barbara and Greg and Daniel and everybody said. And I wish Daniel was so worried about what everybody else would think. But what really mattered were the students. And when they started to come to me and say,
yeah, thank you, Rochelle. And it's one of the things you mentioned was that the difficulty in changing practice as an educator. And I'm really curious, we've got Jerry, you lead an entire school district organization around this idea of being more student-centered and elevating student voice and choice.
It's going to take off. And I think that we're in a district right now, we're starting to get that momentum where more and more people are starting to understand the value of voice, to understand the value that it's not what they like to provide the instruction, but how do we meet the kids' needs and how do we prepare them for the skills of the future?
But at the end of the day, we are the people who form the system. It's our responsibility to acknowledge it and to take ownership of our decisions. It's all on us. We need to evolve and we should be brave enough to embrace these new approaches and invest more upon teacher development as compared to teacher training. And we need to invest more in teacher education.
We have to try. Teachers are tired. They don't want to learn new things.
And now it's better, because it looks better, right? On the surface, it looks better, even if the dynamic hasn't changed, the fundamentals of that system haven't changed. And so they're not actually listening to students more. But if you are, say, higher up or you're really leading change, you can say, all right, it's reformed, right? Because you have that initial stimuli that you can take a look at and back that up. I think that's one of the obstacles that we have.
That is a really valid point. It takes me back to Travis's keynote when he talked about us putting devices in the hands of all of these learners, thinking that education was going to change, and this fear of repeating history with AI tools as well. Does anyone want to comment on Jason's idea there, elaborate on that, or maybe have a counter to that?
I was just going to say that he's absolutely right, but I look at it through the leadership lens. So I think that teachers are like students. They're eager and they're curious and they're adventurous. I think the systems that they work in are the clogs. And if you look at the assessment results for the past few decades, we've had more money, more staff development, more before and after school programs, new curriculum, and no significant increase in academic performance across the country. So if we know it doesn't work, why are we doing the same thing we've always done? And that's where, for me, it's reimagining how we lead, reimagining how we teach, and reimagining how we learn.
And so this is something where we need to learn how to change the way we do teacher training. And when Jerry mentioned school boards, we need to figure out how to get school boards so they understand what the human skills are and be able, because they're doing they control the funding, right? And so that concerns me, is that there's no student voice in many school boards. And we don't talk about these skills and why we need them. We talk about academic achievement. And so we need to look at how we're going to change that. And I look back at what I did, just like I really appreciate Rochelle.
And same for the teachers. And so this is to Daniel's point about reimagining what education looks like and how we need to reset the adults in the room, their perception of how we need to move forward. And it's not just us, it's the accountability from the federal and the state levels. They're not changing. You think we're slow in public education. The state legislature and the federal government is way slower than us.
Well, Jerry, I'm glad you brought that up. We're getting some questions in the chat a little bit about how do we do this with the accountability measures that are in place and the accountability measures tied to funding. So here's my question for this panel. Well, congratulations, Callie, on graduating early. That's great. Let's hear from Daniel, and then we'll go to Samara. Is there still value in standardized assessments? Daniel, what do you think?
Certain ways of learning, and that's it. And I think if we, yeah, I mean, that's just.
Daniel, brilliant. It sounds really like you're talking about the standardized test doesn't really show who you are as a human and all the things that you bring and your potential. That's what I'm taking away from your message. Samar, what are your thoughts on standardized assessments?
We learned into the real world. And one thing that my teacher always used to say in the class is that there will always be one student who scores really good marks. And human intelligence, it's something very dynamic. It's always changing. It's very multifaceted. And to actually measure it by just bubbling something on the answer script, it's genuinely not possible. And that's why I'd like to circle back to something that Callie mentioned. We need more student choice in project-based learning as well. Because when we apply these skills in real-world projects, that's when we know that our knowledge has some real value. And definitely, standardized tests won't be able to give the whole. We have a lot of students, so it would take some time to actually change the system. So to slowly implement it, we would need an additional assessment, and maybe if it works well, we can actually replace standardized testing, and we could measure like these 5 core skills, what I call PEACE. So I developed this abbreviation for it. Getting to stay adaptable, we are getting to collaborate with one another and apply emotional intelligence at the real time, along with our traditional exams.
To articulate my position on that, but I'll tell you what we're leaning more towards right now is more competency-based assessments. And what does that look like? And I see AI creeping into these competency-based assessment that we have yet to embrace, but it's really more about do students, do teachers, does staff have the skill set to actually.
Well, and we're getting some comments in the chat around how do we measure human intelligences? So Jerry, you started to take us on this path of competency-based
and compiled all of this data and found that the emerging trends from the students was the adults in the system don't care. So we went to the teachers, and said, hey, not to blame, but just to have a conversation. The students are saying, they wish there was a better connection. Meetings at the district office and making us do all these compliance issues. We don't have time to support our teachers. So we took a step back and we really had to begin to reflect on our leadership and what were some things that we provided for our students, but to make it more human-centered. The AI platforms free up people's time.
You haven't gotten the support that you've needed from all of your teachers throughout your education career. So I'm glad though that you're finding a way to leverage AI to help you be successful.
So the biggest thing is, I think change can be difficult. And I mean, I've been an educator for many, many years. And
right. So I think that the one thing that is actually resisting our thing to actually change the education system is definitely both our comfort in relying on our traditional practices, and also because there's a lot of fear of the unknown. So definitely this change would require like a good and a bold vision. So that's how I'd like to close it out, to be the change that you wish to see in the world.
Going to take to really come together and innovate and change education. This is what this human intelligence community is all about. So again, a shout out to all of our
knowing the people that I am speaking to in this room who value human intelligence, who value human dignity. I wanted to really share something super tangible that we could take away to start doing this work, because I feel like, are just so many reports that are coming one after one after one about the lack of education people have when it comes to AI, the lack of exposure that people have when it comes to AI. And so this is really like, if you want to move people from where they are to where they need to go, hopefully this is something that will really be able to help. And the entire theme of this is to really begin helping people not think so much about. And so one of the things I want to kind of talk about today, and really I hope these are questions that you are able to take and pose to the groups that you work with, is what happens in a world when machines can act and think like humans? And I feel like this is very sensitive for a lot of people. And, you know, if like many of you I know are deep into the AI space and you're listening to the researchers and scientists. And so I really wanted to just kind of start the conversation because I think this is a very important visual to share with as many people as you can for amplifying this urgency around this idea that I think way too many people in education plan for, think about, and design for only level 1. Or, hey, Jen, I know Jason, we had a big debate online about the role of, what is it like when your avatar attends things and does things? And in this current moment, it can seem very foreign. Well, I would never have an AI avatar attend a meeting. But at the end of the day, we serve kids, health. But after the election, I saw the number of posts I saw from AI people saying, if you don't have anyone to talk to around you, ChatGPT is an amazing, place where you can go to talk about XYZ. So there was a lot of mixed messaging coming to people in so many different ways that being able to, like I said, help people be more proactive, I think a little bit faster than what we're seeing is just an urgency. I think many of us, the person has hope. They know and believe something is possible, but they don't have the tools or resources often to actually take those next steps. And that to me is the biggest role that AI tools can play. I really liked this report from Common Sense Media where they really broke down how students are thinking about these tools. So I want to give you something super practical, super tangible to be able to take back. And that is, if we know meetings are such a blocker to collaboration and moving ideas forward and doing the things we want to do, how do we use our AI tools? So now that we have this this whiteboard, we can kind of ask everybody to put down their ideas about, what is working well maybe right now when we think about integrating AI. What are some big problems we have that we want to deal with? This is whatever focus area you want to choose. You can kind of do this over here. And from here, again, amazing that we have the idea, right? That we want to do something about assessment like everybody does these days and basically turn it into an executive summary document. So if I wanted to send everybody a follow-up about what we just did, or I need to send my principal an update or my superintendent a note about what we just did, it will literally do all of this for you. And even in this scenario, we are barely scratching the surface of AI tools and their capabilities. We're only really looking right now at ChatGPT and Canva. We love Canva because it's free to education. Oh, see, look, the problem's coming in. There is no shortage of problems in this world that we need solved. Let's just say for high school students, okay? Because we know with AI how important.
Well, everyone, it has been a phenomenal day today. Whether it was really hearing from Travis around the rallying cry for the human intelligence movement to the think tank panel, where we had some diverse perspectives and got to hear real thoughts from our students, to this closing keynote, really thinking about how do we tap into our human spark. As we really think about the human intelligence movement, our focus is, as you know, on awareness, community, and advocacy. And we invite you to take this prompt, this idea, and share it with others. Social media has become a great platform for us. I'm going to start to wrap us up and close out our day together today. And first, really just invite all of you to join the human intelligence movement. And there are a couple of ways that you can do that. If you are new to the movement and haven't joined, please go to our website and become a member. Lots of experience, lots of exclusive learning events that we have, excuse me, professional development and networking. It's our professional development session where we are going to look at the portrait of a digitally integrated human, HI and AI human. So join us for this 1-hour special event. We'll be featuring a professional development session each month. How can we leverage the power of AI to boost our human intelligence? And then we will move into something we're calling the thought exchange. And the thought exchange is an opportunity for multiple, we have, I think, 30 breakout sessions with thought leaders